all the way back to 1980. Now you went from the long 1980 because thinking about. There we go, Lauren. Yes, sir. Let me ask you this. You're hired there. Is this where you met Eddie Murphy at?
Yeah.
Okay.
Eddie, I was one of the last writers. I was in one of the next to last writer, and David was the last writer hired on that show.
Is that where you met David at?
Yeah.
Okay, nice.
And everybody on the show all the other writers on that show had the attitude, I don't need this. I'm better than this. I don't need this. And Dave and I had actually worked before. So we knew this was our big break. This was this is the chance to really change your life.
Yeah.
So we really concentrated really hard. And Eddie was a featured player. He wasn't a cast member.
Mm-hmm.
And Eddie's a fairly quiet guy. He's not he's hilarious when he wants to be, but he doesn't have to be the center of attention.
Yeah.
And the rest of the cast wasn't setting the world on fire. So I thought, why not write for this guy? We were talking to him, and my dad had sent me an article about. My dad was always sending me articles, and they were never good ideas. But then he sent an article, which was about an Ohio court. A judge had ruled that every high school basketball team had to have at least one white guy on it. And we thought this would be a funny piece. Eddie wrote something and worked with it on him, and then he was on the air, and you could just tell he had it. He elevated all the material, and then we just started writing with him, some stuff independently of him, some with him. We became like a trio, and then another guy, Bob Tischler, also who was one of the co-producers of the show, joined us in writing stuff, and the rest of the people were saying, "Well, you can't write." No one else wrote for him because he wasn't a cast member, and then he became a cast member, and then he took off. It's been Dave and I have been with Eddie now for 40 years, which is 41 years.
Yeah, wow.
Which is I think the longest marriage in showbiz history. We've gone through a lot of shit together, personal shit and all that.
Yeah, I could imagine. And how has that relationship evolved over time from this quiet guy on SNL to pretty much writing a sequel to a film that has become a beloved classic? Like how has that relationship evolved from day one to now?
Well, now Eddie has final say, but Eddie's very open and collaborative with us. I mean, he'll listen to our ideas and he'll take suggestions from us. And with him and us, it's never, no, this is the way it is and all that. It's always back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And there are things he might come up with which we think might not work. And if we believe in it strongly, we'll tell him and we'll take in advice. And a lot of times he goes, if you don't think it works, then let's do something else.
Mm-hmm. That's how I was wondering if it was like that trust grows over time, how that.
Yeah. There's always been a sense of trust between us. And it's evolved where we can even talk to Eddie about, I know I've had, because I went through a divorce, he called me up and said, I'm going to help you through this. And I was like, of all the people that I expected to call me, I was surprised he called. And he was very helpful. And so we've been there for each other when we're up and down.
That's good. Going back to SNL for a moment, you're credited for over 50 episodes on SNL. Everyone, whether they've watched an episode of SNL or not, they've heard the stories about the madhouse that is SNL, specifically the writing room, the rigorous schedules, to the antics of so many big personalities in one place, especially during your time there in the 80s, kind of like the heyday of it. What was that experience like for you personally in the midst of all that?
Well, someone said, it was not my line, but someone said, work on Saturday Night Live is a cross between a day camp and a concentration camp. And I see what they mean by that. You don't realize there's a world outside. You work from about noon to about 4 in the morning,
Wow.
5 in the morning, and seasons change and you're unaware of it. You're unaware of anything that's going on. And there's this tremendous pressure because each week you've got to start anew.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of pressure. And so after 3 years, we've come back occasionally to write. What happened is my wife got pregnant, and I realized that if I'm going to have a child, I want to be able to see it.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Understandable. Let me ask you this, because I mean, like you said, you're taking us down a trip down memory lane because, again, of course, we grew up watching Saturday Night Live and things of that nature. The time you spent there, of the sketches you wrote, if you had to pick a favorite, what would it be?
It would be the killing of buckwheat. That's my favorite.
Awesome.
That's that's a classic.
Yes.
Oh man, that was I can't remember. Was there more than one?
There was 3 segments, and there was only supposed to be one, but the first one went so well. We got an idea for the second, and then that one went on. We had an idea for the third.
Okay, yeah, I couldn't remember if that was a recurring character or if I was just remembering. I mean, it's definitely iconic one way or another.
Well, Buckwheat Eddie had done, but it was a very limited character. There's not a lot of depth to Buckwheat, and he was getting tired of it. And he was shooting Trading Places, and this ran over Christmas. And I got a call from him, and he says, I got an idea. Let's kill Buckwheat. Let's have him assassinated. And then Bob Tisch, and I wrote the piece, 3 pieces.
Awesome, man.
It's interesting that the first one was based on the Reagan assassination. Second one was based on Jack Ruby and shooting Lee Harvey Oswald.
Mm-hmm.
And the third one began with buckwheat impersonators on the David Susskind show. We used to have a show. It was a guy who had a show, a late night talk show. And we took the dialogue exactly. He did a show with Elvis impersonators. And we took the dialogue exactly from that and just gave it to the buckwheat impersonators. And we had David Susskind do the show and to host it, that segment. And he goes, boy, this sounds awfully familiar to me. I've heard this somewhere before.
After you directed Peep World, according to IMDb, it appears as though you went into retirement only to come out for Eddie Murphy, with your first credit in 9 years being the return for both of you to SNL in 2019. Is that an accurate interpretation?
Yes and no. You write projects and they don't go.
Okay, yeah.
So, you hope that happens. And then what happens, I got divorced after being married 29 years. And I wanted to change my life around. And I was getting tired of Hollywood. And Hollywood was getting a little tired of me. And I started teaching, which I love. I really love. And then I did, it's not an IMDb, but I went to Russia, where I helped create a TV show that was the biggest show in Russian TV history.
Oh, wow.
And I won the equivalent of I'm the only American to ever win the Russian equivalent of an Emmy.
That's awesome.
Man. Yeah. And I don't speak a word of Russian. I would be in a writer's room and I had an interpreter.
That's amazing. That's very interesting. How did that transpire? Like, how did you end up in Russia writing?
I was at a party at a friend's house, and someone said they were working for a Russian company adapting an American show. Would I be interested? I said, yeah, I think I'd be interested in something like that, but doing a Russian adaptation of Married with Children or whatever you name the show doesn't interest me. Yeah. And then they called them. They said, we're doing an original show.
Gotcha.
So I went there, and then I found out a lot about Russian culture and all that stuff. And then they go, "You are really a Russian man."
Thanks.
I guess.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question real quick before we leave Saturday Night Live. But what was it like returning to SNL? I mean, it seems like the culture at 30 Rock has evolved over the years, one way or another. Or through the decades, clearly.
There's been
Like going to visit your
documentaries.
junior high school, and everything looks physically different. The ceilings were lower now because they had to put so many wires in there,
Mm-hmm.
and the hallways were a little narrower too. It was interesting. I met Warren Michaels, who I never met before because I had never worked for Warren Michaels. I
Mhm.
worked under Gene Domanian and Dick Ebersol. I was those years.
Yeah.
The writers were really nice. The cast was really nice, and the show came off great. So it was a good experience. But working those hours you can do when you're young.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like on 4 a.m. I have Parkinson's. I need to get my sleep.
Yeah.
Those are very rigorous hours. It's very rigorous.
That was a great monologue.
That was a great monologue. And nothing. I wrote a joke for Tracy Morgan in it. That's my contribution to that monologue. But I thought the monologue was great, and I thought it was wonderful that Chappelle and Chris Rock and Tracy were there.
Yeah, it felt like a return into greatness for SNL. I'm still a fan of SNL, but there are those magic years that every once in a while they tap into.
Well, people say that about the years I was there, and I say, I wish you were saying that when I was there. I can show you plenty of Saturday Night Dead articles.
I'm sure Norm Macdonald shares those sentiments. Everybody loved him when he was gone.
Yeah.
Why don't you subscribe? It'll last longer.